All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening. If you could take your seats, we're going to get started. Got folks still coming in, but we're going to try to get you out of here early tonight.
You can even deed it to them, and you won't get any building permits. You might have.
Good evening. Welcome to Butte County General Plan 2030 Workshop Series number 4-2E. It's E because this is the fifth CAC meeting in this workshop series, and tonight is our wrap-up night, correct? Yeah. Correct. All right. Excellent. Thank you. You should all have a copy of the packet, the agenda, which outlines what we're going to be talking about tonight. I have a few things I want to cover with you real quick before I turn it over to Dan. Again, you're all very familiar with the guiding principles. No surprises there. The population numbers, the projections, I guess I would just remind us that these are county-wide projection numbers. These include the cities as well as the county, but also highlighting the county as well. So we have the 104,000 is what we're using in our planning period, planning horizon through the year 2030. That's county-wide. As we're talking about the unincorporated county, it's 24,000 is the population number that we're projecting will be added to Butte County unincorporated area in the year by the year 2030. As that translates to housing units, here are the housing unit numbers. We've talked about this, about 44,000 housing units added to the county, including the cities, over the next 20 years. Of those, about 10,500 in the county, the unincorporated area. So again, those numbers will come into play as we're talking tonight, especially as we summarize things towards the end. So far, you've met 4 times. Last meeting, we met until the police came and kicked us out.
That did add some character to our whole proceeding.
I haven't been busted at a CAC meeting before. That was a new experience. Yeah. Were they?
After about 10 minutes, and some of us were left after in the afternoon.
Dang it.
It was serious.
Unfortunately, somebody had one of those little flashlights,
Well, we will know. Thank you for rescuing Sue. No. Right. Well, we learned that we have to be out of there by 11 o'clock, so we know that now. 10 so that they can kind of clean up and get ready. So far, you've utilized the alternatives evaluation report in studying the 31 unincorporated county study areas. You've created many new alternatives, which are added into what will become the preferred alternative recommendation to the Planning Commission. And then I want to switch gears, switch topics. Let me switch topics with you for a second. The Brown Act. We haven't talked with you about the Brown Act before, and there was a question early on about is this a Brown Act committee? I think there was some confusion on my part. I actually thought this was not a Brown Act committee as we got started because you make recommendations to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission takes that, makes a recommendation on the board. But by definition, as I read the Brown Act in a little more detail, this is a Brown Act committee. And so as a result of it being a Brown Act committee, we're required to do certain things. And you're required, as a member of a committee that is a Brown Act committee, to do and not do certain things. And I just want to touch bases with you on those briefly. If anybody's interested, this is in Government Code, Section 54950. And one of the things, for example, we're required to have public comment at every meeting we have. We do have time for public comment. Tonight it's at the end of this agenda. In the past, it's been at the beginning, and it will likely continue to be at the beginning of the agendas or in the middle of the agendas, but tonight is a little unique, so it will be at the end. We're required to post the meeting notices in advance of the meetings, which we do. So we've been following the spirit of the Brown Act, but there are a few things that we need to just get a little clarified. In short, what the Brown Act is all about is that the public's business should be done in public. That's the whole idea. It's an open meeting law. and it's adopted by the legislature, approved as the law of the land in California, for counties and cities to follow. Special districts have to follow it. Of course, the legislature doesn't have to follow it, but that's another story. It does apply to us on this committee, to you on this committee. So I think if you just remember this little statement, the public's business should be done in public. That's really all you need to know, about guiding your actions as members of the committee. Okay, but in case you want to know a little more, here's one more slide for you. Members of the CAC should not send out emails to the CAC list. Okay, that's a no-no. And we've made that mistake. We're doing a course correction right now. It's something that you shouldn't do, and it has to do with soliciting input or trying to influence members of the committee outside of the public process. That kind of lobbying, if you will, for your belief or position should happen in a room like this, not on an email. And so it's safest if you email to Dan, and then Dan can forward out information to committee members. And there's the line that we get into where, isn't it okay to send information? Yes, and then it kind of becomes more than just information. Things tend to evolve on the replies and the reply all, and that's where it gets a little murkier. So if you want to just be safest, it's best to just send emails that you want to get information out to your other members. Send them to us. We will distribute them out with the agendas and get them to all the members. Bruce, you have a question?
Does that mean the whole list? Or we shouldn't correspond with one member?
That's a good question, and that's a very real scenario. What happens when you correspond with one member is then they correspond with one member, and they correspond with one member, so you end up having what's called a serial meeting. And that just, it can happen. It has happened. It's been the source of a lot of legal issues in California as this issue's been debated. And so, again, I think it's safest. I mean, you could do that. That's up to you. But it's just going to be my recommendation to you that you stick to the public forum process for these discussions and sharing of information.
What about the forum on the website?
Good question. We would recommend that you don't post things to the forum, that you come here and have the discussion. So you're kind of a different group than the public. You're a member of a special committee that gives recommendations to the board. You're to debate issues, to discuss issues in public, and that's really where your comments should be provided. Jason, you just having fun there? Okay.
Tim, would it require meeting with half of the committee to violate the Brown Act?
Yes.
Technically, that's what we're talking
And
about.
there's 36 of us?
34, 32.
34 of you? So sorry I haven't gotten to the other half of the half that I haven't gotten to yet.
Well, I guess the question is tonight, what's the quorum? Tonight we're going to take votes, and it's just, again, I think safest. We don't want criticism for our process. We want to have a really clear, transparent process to the public. That's been our goal all along, and so we want to just continue to be very reputable with the way we conduct business on this committee, and as you make your recommendations to the Planning Commission, and we carry them on to the board. So, and again, I mean, the reality of this is you have this potentially misconduct is a misdemeanor. And so I think that's the harsh reality that we're faced with as a Brown Act committee. And that's just real. And
so is Dan going to be an impromptu censor if he doesn't like something that
nope,
one of
he's
us
not
wants
allowed to
distributed?
censor. No,
okay.
We are not allowed to censor stuff that we don't like, even though we're going to try. No, we won't try. We will not censor minority and majority opinions, good ideas, bad ideas. They all come forward through the process as we think of something as good or bad. There was a question for the public back there. Did you? Yes?
I was just going to ask about how many people you need before you violate that.
Right. Okay, half the quorum. Half of the 32 would be technically the answer. But again, I think it's just safest because on email, on web forums, you lose control of information as you send it out there. So it's different than having a phone call or a conversation. Okay. I think you can't. Question?
No, I don't have a question. I just have a comment that I think you're absolutely right when it comes to what public perception is. And the public perception may not technically be a violation, but the public may see it as some kind of issue, and then the entire process can be hurt.
Right.
So we're looking, I think, mainly to keep the public perception in a very positive way.
And if you think about it, we videotape meetings, we record everything so that we are providing a very good record of our process. And so we want to be able to document the journey of the preparation of Butte County General Plan 2030. And you already talked about some of these things. Again, you can't send an email out, how are you going to vote on this one? What do you think of this study area? As we get into the draft general plan, and the policies, don't poll people, don't look for consensus, and let's not have you use the web forum. Let's have the public use the web forum. Again, in short, the public's business should be done in public. If you think of that when you're wanting to press send on that email or whatever it is, just kind of hold off. And so, again, I don't mean to kind of rain on the party here, but it's just the way we should do business. Okay? Any other questions? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he's going to get us going with wrapping up the study area discussion.
Thanks, Tim. Greetings, everyone. Dan Breeden, Development Services. Well, we're going to pick up right where we left off on May 1st with the deliberation of study area number 14, Nance Canyon, State Route 99. And Tim's going to bring that up right now. But in the interim, I want to cover some of the materials that we've presented to you. The packet that you have is really a duplication of what we provided to you on May 1st. So you'll see some duplicate material. We just wanted to make sure that you had that information available to you. There is some extra material as well. There's a planning area number 14 comment. This one. There's a Tuscan Ridge Golf Club circulation, along with a petition. And also you have this supplementary material, which was comments that we received after May 1st. So these are new comments to the process. Along with this packet, we have the voting tallies that explain how the votes took place through May 1st. And we also have the aggregated corrections to the addendum on the alternatives evaluation report. This is actually a corrections that will be going to the Planning Commission. So you received one of these for each of the 3 CAC meetings for each of the geographical areas. This is just a summation of all those corrections so the Planning Commission can see those corrections as they go through the alternatives evaluation report. Okay. So the goal of tonight's meeting is to wrap up around 8 o'clock. We can hopefully go through these 4 study areas in a manner that can be expeditious. We have 4 study areas to go, which are study area 14, 10, 17, and 18. We have completed 9 on May 1st. That was 5, 8, 9, 15, 23, 27, 31, 33, and 34. What I'd like to do is go over some of the corrections that Tanya Sundberg identified for the benefit of everybody gathered here. She went through these corrections at the beginning of the May 1st meeting. So if you can take out your supplementary material, which looks like this, supplement material to the agenda, look at voting outcomes from the April 10th, May 1st CAC meetings, and the first page. And so I'd like to go over some of those unit corrections for the benefit of everybody so we know what we're starting with. And these were unit corrections that were made after the Citizens Advisory Committee's actions on these areas and then disclosed that May 1st prior to the start of that meeting. Did everybody find that?
No, that's it.
Everybody got it? Yeah. So we've...
But I don't. Make sure.
if you go to study area 2, North Chico specific plan, you'll see a correction, a strikeout of 3,800 units, and the correction is 3,900 new homes. Study area number 5, Magalia Paradise Pines. And you'll see that there's an explanation that at the time of the April 10th meeting, the information provided to the CAC indicated that Alternative 3 would allow approximately 400 new homes. However, subsequent to that meeting, more detailed analysis revealed that the alternatives would actually allow approximately 3,800 new homes. Now, the CAC took action when they reopened this study area on May 1st to keep the 400 maximum homes. Study area number 11, which is the Paradise Urban Reserve. You can see a correction there that said originally 20 parcels, 20-acre parcels, and actually no parcelization until the area is annexed by the town. The original said it would allow 100 new homes. Actually, not a significant number of new homes would be allowed under that alternative, the urban reserve alternative. Study area 17, there is also a correction to the unit counts. Originally it said 50, and the correction is 500 under alternative 1. And for study area 21, the original was 7,000 units, and the correction is 11,600 new homes. Study area 23, this was a correction. The original alternative 1 showed 18,400 new homes. Actually, this was reduced to about 17,000 new homes based upon information that DC&E reviewed. Study area 26. The information is that this would allow 9,000 new homes. And originally at the 417 meeting, it was not clear how many more new homes would be allowed. Study area 28, Southern Oroville, allows 400 new homes. That's new information for that study area. 28 Southern Oroville. And for study area 29, Palermo, the original showed 100. The new number is 400 new homes. And that is all the corrections. And all those were discussed prior to the May 1st meeting. We just wanted to make sure that it was clear to everybody today what those corrections were, and just based on recalculations that DC&E did of the density and the allowed uses.
Dan, could I ask a
Yes, sir.
question? When we finish, and this goes to the Planning Commission, and as it rolls on to become a general plan, then the county is required to do an environmental impact report on all of the study areas that we've identified. Okay. So that EIR is still to come.
That EIR is still to come. That's right.
And that will come after we've done the policy and after we've had all of our other discussions? I mean, that's you don't get the EIR until you get the final document.
Right. The EIR will be based upon our project, which will be defined by the allowed development, the study areas, all combination of factors.
Thank you.
Dan?
Okay, yes.
If I can just further clarify for my own understanding, the EIR won't do all the study areas. They will do the study areas that remain after we do our policy review, because some of those study areas may or may not change.
And
is
again,
that correct?
Yes, and it's important to understand that the EIR is at a programmatic level, which is a fancy term under the California Environmental Quality Act that means we're not approving individual development projects. Those very specific focused EIRs come later in the process. For perhaps a study area, someone comes in with a specific plan, it'll have a very focused environmental impact report along with it. So with that, I think we will start our discussion on study area 14. And it is up on the screen. This is the, let's see, I got the right one here. Currently, this is the preferred alternative as identified by the CAC on April 24th. And let me just read that. This is study area 14, Nance Canyon, Highway 99. 11 support agricultural only. 4 support agriculture with 1,100 acres of industrial, research and business park use and no residential development. 5 support agriculture with both industrial and residential uses. So let's begin. I don't know who last we left hanging when we were kicked out by the campus police, but feel free to speak up.
It seems to me like right before we got kicked out, we were going to vote on that, like it was imminent. And
Well,
that's how far along we'd come.
I'm not sure if everybody held that belief, but we can certainly discuss if we're ready to.
No, I'd like to have more
vote.
discussion.
Yeah.
I would. I felt like at the end we were packing up and people were already out of their chairs. I'd just like to go back to discussion again.
Yeah, I got a sense that people didn't want to be rushed to judgment on a study area. It was late and people were tired, so we wanted to start fresh, and that's what we're doing. Any other comments on study area 14?
Is there anybody bold enough to want to summarize where they thought we were at the end of that evening?
Well, John had his hand up. John?
Mike?
Okay. How about this one? Better?
Yep.
I'd like to take the unlikely posture of pitching a very civil and respectful discussion of the study area, having demonstrated the opposite at the previous meeting. And my apologies to the members of the CAC that took issue with my characterization of the developer's position. I got a lot of email after the last meeting from folks who, while they may have agreed with my characterization, felt that it's not entirely fair to address people in that way. So, having said that, I think that it's important to look at this one, crack the book again, and look at the grades on all the areas of consideration. This is a spot that got D's across the board for anything related to biotics constraints or environmental permitting and the like. And I spent some time since the last meeting looking at the vernal pool recovery plan the service has out. It's a pretty stiff hurdle to get over. I think short of another vote, I think that it might make some sense to look at a recommendation that, or an alternative that provides for some room around the landfill for uses compatible with the landfill that might extend the landfill's life. You know, the green waste, the recycle, reuse stuff that, you know, you kind of drive into that first and offload the stuff that could go someplace else besides in the landfill. My understanding from folks on the solid waste board is that an opportunity for that would enhance and add some life to the landfill. The rest of it, given the way that the Fish and Wildlife Service has characterized the recovery plan, they're looking to acquire either land and fee or conservation easements on land that's in the recovery plan. And going over to BCAG and looking at the aerial maps, there's a lot of vernal pool and vernal swale complex on that 1,100 acres that's up on the auction. So I think that that land is very well suited either for mitigation bank or sale of easement and the like, because in addition to all the vernal pool and vernal swale stuff, there's also a couple of, where it doesn't exist on the 1,100 acres, you got to fend more drainages that you're going to have to set back from and everything else. So I think it would be a mistake for us to send a message to the folks who may or may not buy this property that it would actually be workable as a research park. So.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
Yes.
I was looking at this map in here, is this a, do you have that one on the screen, or?
You're talking about the map on the last page?
Yeah, it's the one that, figure 3-14, distribution of grassland in the planning area. Yeah.
It's in the back, yeah. No, it's
And
Yeah.
in it here, it says there's grassland with vernal pools less than 1%. Those are the numbers I'm looking at.
Okay, I want to see what you're looking at. Just, is it,
And right there.
Yeah.
okay, so what Donna Bayless is referring to is the handout from Mr. Swartz regarding Study Area 14, the most recent handout. Everyone should have one of these. If you don't, we were short a few, so if you don't have one of these, please share with your neighbor.
Okay.
What page again was that?
The last page. The last page.
The next one over here, Dan.
Okay, does anybody need one? Everybody have one? Okay.
So this one, who prepared that one?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Excuse me?
Where did these numbers come from?
These come from Mr. Swartz.
Could we identify the source of the information, however?
It looks like the Butte County HCP is where this map comes from, though,
Okay.
I believe.
So Dan?
Yes.
I've got the HCP map here as a PDF. You can put it up if you want.
Now, John, I've seen both of these maps. Why are they different?
I don't know. This is what I got from BCAG.
This is what I've got from BCAG in my packet from being on the HCP.
And this is showing specifically what soils?
No, this is showing ground cover, land cover
Vegetation.
type, vegetation type, and then the ephemeral drainages. And I put a cloud around the parcel line that's the 1,100 acres.
Okay. Okay, we did see a request from Mr. Anderson for this map that's up above over here that shows the critical habitat for that area. And this map shows priority 1 and priority 2 areas for the county. And so you can see where that is. Mr. Devine from Butte County Association of Governments sort of explains this map, which is something that we recently received from them. In the Zone 1 core area, the goal is generally retain 95% of suitable habitat and 100% of occurrences for key vernal pool species, such as Butte County meadowfoam, within each zone. The goals for Zone 2 core areas are generally closer to 85% retention of suitable habitat. Goals for retention of occurrence vary from 80 to 100%. The recovery plan also makes a statement that in general we consider recovery recommendations in Zone 2 and 3 to be more flexible than in Zone 1. So, and he also says that keep in mind these are only goals and it isn't necessarily set in stone, but this is the document that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff will be looking to when they are assessing impacts from development to the vernal pool landscape in Butte County. So this map is essentially showing vernal pool habitat and coverage.
Okay.
And I don't know how that relates to what you were talking about, but I wanted to highlight that map too.
I mean, can the county validate for us or confirm for us this information?
Not right now.
I think it's
because I don't know what a source of this information is, and it's not identified. So,
Doesn't it say Butte HCP?
Mr. Swartz is in the audience, and if it's the desire of the Citizens Advisory Committee to hear from Mr. Swartz
Yeah,
on
I'd
this,
like
we can allow
Okay.
that.
And we've got 3 members of the HCP at the table. Would it be, I'd like to say something. The figure Mr. Schwartz, and he'll have a chance to speak in a moment, is a surprise to me. It's a surprise to one of the people sitting next to me. The characterization just given by Dan as a vernal pool recovery area is the way I have understood the mapping, and it is mapped as critical habitat. The vernal pools were mapped down to 400 square feet. So the mapping of the vernal pools was pretty accurate, and then they also mapped the the swales around it. So we're really thinking that the figure is different than that which Mr. Schwartz has presented. And for those of us in the HCP, it seems that the challenges of developing this property are probably going to be substantial. It doesn't mean that they can't be overcome, but it's a puzzle to me. And I'll stop there because I don't want to speak for other members of the committee.
Let me respond for staff and say that the constraints that we are using are fully disclosed in the alternatives evaluation report. And that's the information on constraints that I think the Citizens Advisory Committee should be using in assessing these study areas. So they've been researched, they're well sourced, and they're the information that we rely upon for this for the HCP. There is a map in the alternatives evaluation report that discusses the Habitat Conservation Plan. This map up above John Anderson is a little more detailed, and it shows the core areas, which I just described. But this is still part of the Habitat Conservation Plan. So I would recommend to staff that you use our alternatives evaluation report and not any other source of information at this point to determine constraints on a study area.
Okay.
I'd also like to hear this group discuss what's in this new packet, I believe, and that's the history behind this property, and I think the intent for the county to possibly identify it as a place that could be used as a county courthouse and a facility there, along with, I think, the city's intent to annex or the same use. So I'd like to hear from the county of what you guys have discussed about this property, because I think, if not here, where? And then the city's, Holly's here, she could talk about what the city envisions for this property. I think, I understand that I think the mitigations that needed to overcome the constraints here, but there's a lot more to the discussion than just the environmental part of this property. There's a lot of history to this property. And as for the sale of this property, I believe it's been for sale for several years. This is not a new thing when it comes to it being in regards to this Citizens Advisory Committee, this general plan. This has been a piece of property sold for sale for a long time. And there's information in here from...
Right, we do have city input, and that's up on the screen right now, from the city of Chico. Support for a job center creation prior to housing. Ensure land uses are compatible with the landfill. Suggestion to buffer development. Need to address market viability and biological resources. Need to coordinate with the Habitat Conservation Plan. And attention to be paid to the realignment of Neal Road along Highway 99. So that's the summarized input of the deliberations that we've had with the city, with our one-on-one meetings together.
How about in regards to county services being located there or anywhere else?
County services being located there? No, I have no knowledge
Courthouse?
of that. Tim, do you want to speak?
I can tell you that I can't tell you. Seriously, the county is exploring several options, and I think from a perspective of, marketing and pricing, there's not a decision made. I'm not involved in those, so I really don't know. But I do know that this is one, as Mr. Schwartz indicates in the information that you have, the county has looked at the possibility of a government center, a courthouse on that property.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to, I need some water. I'd like to talk about a couple of things. In the last week since we looked at this, one of the things I've always felt is that the location of this being on the south end of Chico gave Chico a great opportunity to grow to the south as people want us to grow north and south, not up in the foothills, not over the green line. It's access off Highway 99. I just always thought it would be a great place to develop. I think it's got huge hurdles when I look at the idea of what they have to be able to prove to be able to eventually develop something on this, but I've always thought it was a great spot. So in talking to people at the county, I was told that if at some point in time a road is able to be constructed across from the Skyway to Highway 99, which we could really use, because the other day I was out on the corner of Bruce Road and Skyway and traffic was backed up all the way to that intersection on Bruce Road, freeway traffic going to get on Highway 99. So the people coming down from Paradise, and I'm not sure if the number of the population of Paradise and the Ridge is 30, 40,000. I mean, I'm not sure what the number really is, but many of them are coming down to the Skyway to get onto 99 there, and that's why we have this traffic jam. It wouldn't happen in the next year or two, but maybe years from now there would be a cut across joining the Skyway onto 99, which would really save that. Well, the figure that was given to me by someone who I believe is in the know is that there could be a savings of $20 million if the Skyway interchange did not have to be created where the Skyway and 99 are now. If the cut across ever occurred, it would really be a huge savings for that road to someday go in. For a road to go in means that something has to be built there. And just to give you as an example, I just built some buildings in Orland, and the town of Orland said if you're going to build those buildings, you have to do a new intersection and a new roadway. So it cost $285,000 to do what I needed to do to build those buildings to improve their streets. And you got to be able to put that cost somewhere. So then we put that back into the buildings, back into the rents, back into the cost of construction. You got to put in the road. And so someday if a road was to go there, something would have to support it being there. It couldn't just be a road that went through with cows on both sides. I mean, it's not going to happen. And I look at this property and think it's a great piece of property to be master planned someday. And since we are looking at a general plan that's 2030, not 2008, the idea to create something like the city has asked, something that would be like an employment-based area, possibly residential out there for the people that like to bike to work and not have to drive everywhere. But whatever would happen there would have to be a sustainable plan, and it would have to be a master plan that met with the city. And I just think it's a great opportunity for Chico at some point in time to grow to the south. And when you're looking at Butte Creek Country Club on the left, it just seems such a natural, I mean, it's not all open space. You're not surrounded by farms out there growing orchards. That's tough dirt out there. So I look at it and think if Butte Creek Country Club is on the left, it would be great to be able to develop on the right, and especially a cut across that would go up to the Skyway. This is 6,000 acres. I don't think it needs to happen on all 6,000 acres. I think the piece that's down by the freeway that has the power lines, I mean, I think that's a great piece that could be developed someday by someone who's willing to jump through all the hurdles and mitigate all the mitigation that has to happen. But I think to just blanket it all by grazing, I think we're making a mistake. I think we need to look at it in possibly parts that could be more of an employment, residential area with an overlay that they're going to have to come up with this master plan that really works for traffic and everybody. But I just think just a blanket grazing is a big mistake. I think the city needs this piece to eventually have 20, 30 years from now.
Okay.
Georgie?
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay.
Georgie, I agree with you, but it's why I voted for alternative one, which is to keep it in agriculture at the moment. Because as we discussed the property, and you've discussed a wide range of possibilities, you said it's potentially an area for Chico to grow. It's potentially an area for a research park. It's potentially along the Skyway side an area for residential homes. But there's also, in one of the notes that was put up from the city, and one of the points you just made, there's, from the map over here and from the HCP data that we're supposed to go on for our decision, the constraints are significant. And as a member of this committee, I don't really know how those could be overcome. So my choice really is to stick with the zoning that is there now and to do what we've asked on some other pieces of property, which is that when the developer has a concrete plan to advance to the county or to the city, depending on who's the target here, to make that decision then. But it's really hard, I think, it is for me, hard to say, well, we should go with the proposal the developer has, or we should choose alternative 2 or alternative 3. I'm not trying to punt, and I'm not trying to vote for grazing because it's not necessarily an appropriate area just for grazing. But it's to say, I don't get it. And I'm not ready to make a decision. So, I mean, I'm still over here with number one.
Well, but I think that, you know, we've been asked as a committee not to punt, you know, to come up with something that we could really see happening there. And I think by just saying grazing, I think we're saying grazing.
A point of clarification from staff is, Jason O'Weir, if the city or the county was not to designate this as a growth area for this type of development, and the city were to be approached and or go for it, the tax sharing agreement would be off the table for the county?
Not necessarily.
But harder?
A tax sharing agreement could be a function of, say, an urban reserve or something like that, where the county would implement an urban reserve policy for an area, and before that urban reserve could be used, then there would be a condition, for instance, that would implement some kind of agreement between the county and the city for a tax sharing agreement.
But but given the alternatives that are in front of us, ag or not, if it was ag, are you saying that scenario would be a tax sharing arrangement?
No.
Okay.
So the county would lose out at that time.
Well, if there wasn't something later on, if there was an annexation proposal to the city, there could still be an arrangement worked out between the city and the county.
And knowing that, I think the city's intentions here, that is very likely that someone would approach the city first, at least from my experience.
Is that the position of council?
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree with Jason that we need to look at more than one specific aspect of this project in making our decision. I did that back when we considered this during the three main meetings, and I suspect that those who supported agriculture only did as well. One of the governing principles that we've all decided to be bound by was to maintain compact urban forms and to preclude leapfrog development or sprawl. In the context of south of Chico, I don't consider this South Chico as Georgie indicated, but I would say this is south of Chico. I think we need to realize that we have opened up a major area for potential development in the Doe Mill Ridge area, which maintains some clear, defensible urban boundaries for Chico. We've also opened up an area for industrial development at the intersection of 99 and Durham-Pence Road. This area would basically allow a bridging of those two areas if it were to be open for any type of development, and would not maintain a defensible compact urban boundary for the city of Chico, but would, I think, encourage the city of Chico to sprawl to the south, eventually to connect with the Durham-Pence. One of the reasons that I supported the industrial area at Durham-Pence was because I thought that eventually, as many of the writers suggested as we looked at that Durham-Pence might make a true new community should we ever find that we need that.
Now you were speaking of the Hamlin Canyon
yes, Hamlin,
study area.
Which is study area number
15, I believe.
15. And we've decided that. So I just frankly think that I have to maintain my support for ag only. I agree with Scott. I agree with John. I think this area does not need our attention right now. It may require our attention in the future, and we certainly are able to do that. But Georgie is proposing that we go well beyond what the developer has asked for and look at this as a potential area for not only industrial but housing and perhaps commercial. And I think that we have no plan before us for that right now. So
okay,
I would.
That is the plan, isn't it? Wasn't that the plan we had, though? I mean, wasn't that an alternative up there with the housing? It's right up there, yeah. There's some there, Jeff.
Oh, there is, but as I understand it, the developer has changed that to request 1,100
acres of industrial. Right, for a research and business park, and no residential.
So I would strongly suggest that we maintain our vote as is.
Well, I'm still hearing two major threads here, and one is still the ag only. Is there any sentiment out there for a change to what was described as the developer's request, which was 1,100 acres of industrial research and business park use and no residential development, That was somewhat of the minority report. It got 4 votes last time. Is there any traction to change that particular alternative? Does anybody have any suggestions? Otherwise, I don't think we're going anywhere.
Well, the change would be to have the dump compatibility included, and some of the compatibility would be for some industrial uses that are compatible with the dump.
Okay.
So wouldn't that be a modification to what he proposed?
Yes, it is.
Well, I think he's in favor of that. I think the county's in favor of that. That's a good area to have some of our, how might you say it, our uglier stuff.
Yeah. And Steve, I'll
sorry,
make a correction.
Steve Roderick, but the dump is a dump. It's not that pretty. And so the landfill, sorry.
Sanitary.
You know, the landfill is a better sounding word than dump, isn't it? So
I guess my question would be, are we being asked tonight to draw those boundaries and
the boundaries of the buffer?
Desired industrial surrounding the area zoned compatible with a landfill surrounding the landfill? I don't know of any plan before us.
We are not asking you to draw that buffer because that's going to have to be established in a little more technical way.
I would move
Instead of become like the circle for Berry Creek Retail.
I think there is a map and it proposes a 2,000-foot buffer around the dump, around the landfill.
Let me correct myself. I did represent that there were 2, and there's 3 actually, 2 minority reports. One was 5 support agriculture with both industrial and residential uses. So we had 5 votes for ag with both industrial and residential, and 4 supported ag with 1,100 acres of research and business park. So I apologize.
And my comment was on that 1,100 acres where they were saying research business park, where I look at it and think, after talking to people at the city, it's more like something that was an employment use type of thing, but also possibly residential in there. We keep talking about this mixed use idea with the homes and the offices. So when I was talking about the 1,100 acres, I wasn't meaning to add to that. I was just saying that instead of saying 1,100 acres, it has to be industrial, to say in that 1,100 acres, it can be industrial, but it could also have residential in there as long as it was
a mixed use designation.
Specific plan, but on a specific plan that worked with whatever the city of Chico was willing to let them work with.
I would support that.
Also, Dan, if I may add, if we could take a look at the landfill and as well as this alternative on this map here of Skyway back to 99 as another caveat to put into this. That's $20,000 interchange.
$20 million.
$20 million, thank you.
If it ever happens.
A few extra zeros there is a very big number, and I'd sure like to see an alternative in this, because this is a great opportunity that doesn't really
So an alternative that would work towards that new interchange.
Exactly.
Well, I want to respond to Jeff, and I do appreciate your comments, Jeff. I guess, and no offense to Mr. Swartz, I don't really care what the developer wants here. I do see this as a natural growth area for Chico. It's along the corridor. It's 5 minutes away. Whether it's bounded by certain lines and certain colors here, I guess I don't care where those lines are. I do see it as a natural growth area, especially since I think I'm involved with the growth areas in Chico. We got nothing. We got nowhere to go over there. And it's a tough time, and we really need to, someone said we need to look for it in the future. This is where we're looking at it for the future. So that's why I support this. I see this as the natural area, whether it's blue or green or whatever.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
As a member of the public, could you show where the 1,100-acre line would be on that map?
I think it's between the power lines and the freeway.
These are the 3 original alternatives, and number 1 would be, ag. Number 2, the sphere actually, Tim, is on this map here. Pardon me.
Yeah. Where's the sphere?
You can see it as a dotted line.
Okay, show me.
Upper right. There you go.
Okay. So we are, so even though you're saying it's south of Chico, I mean, it is right against the sphere line of the city, right?
That's right.
Okay, because I mean, I think of it as being right there. I think the 1,100 acres sort of is a dog leg, and it would come off the Skyway up where that brown block is, and then it comes down towards the freeway, and then it goes down towards the landfill. So it's kind of a dog leg shaped piece of property, you know, and I think that's really the only viable piece.
There it is.
Oh, okay, great. Anyway, we don't have it.
Could I add something?
Yes.
As a member of the HCP Stakeholder Committee, I think when the Board of Supervisors and the 5 cities signed on to the planning agreement to develop the HCP, I think that brought into the Butte County as a whole a new era, so to speak, or a new paradigm of thinking about land use and thinking about where we put our growth, and it elevated the environmental constraints in importance for the decision makers that we have, and I think it's a document that's still yet to be adopted, but I think one of the reasons that it's dovetailing with the general plan process is, again, to emphasize that we have a new paradigm here in Butte County, and that the environmental constraints are rising. This is, you know, the 21st century in California, and these are important considerations that are not going to maybe the old paradigm, the old way of thinking may have to shift and to incorporate these new constraints, and you can think of them as opportunities. And so by looking at these areas, we don't necessarily have to think of them as ag only. That, to me, that, I mean, that's that has sort of a negative aspect just with the word only, because these are incredible resources that we have here in the county that we need to look at as assets, and we need to look at as something that we're proud of and that we value. This is some of the most unique landscape in the state, and I think the views and the corridor, even though, you know, corridors are traditionally heavy commercial areas, we have one of the most unique corridors probably in the state here. And I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again, that this corridor, if we are able to protect the buttes, the viewshed of this corridor, we're giving the future of Butte County a tremendous asset for the future. And in 100 years, 200 years, when maybe the rest of the county is built out and we can put houses other places. We've got lots of housing in Oroville now. We've got lots of housing. We've got in tremendous industrial areas that we've already. I think the graphs that we had last week were way above the projections on industrial areas. We're way above the projections on residential areas. So the numbers are.
And we're going to look at those again.
But I want to say, when you said about the viewshed, I did agree with your comments last week that when you do come up Highway 99 and you do look out on the buttes there by the Butte College, I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. But when you come further up 99, I mean, your view to the right is the landfill. I mean, it's not beautiful. And this is just north of that. So, I mean, I understand down by the buttes it's beautiful, but, you know, when we put in projects, you know, you have to have road accessibility, and that we have 99 in the Skyway bordering this, that's why we put projects near highways and things, so we're not going through towns like Magalia with small entrances and narrow roads. But I guess my question is, in making this something that we're going to vote on, you have the one alternative of ag only. Can we sort of regroup another alternative that is.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're sort of, kind of thing.
Georgie, could I finish?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And I'll make it brief because I understand but I do very much want the CAC to realize that we are way above the numbers. And so by leaving this for maybe future consideration or leaving this in ag only, we are leaving this for future generations. And just because it's north of the landfill, I look in that canyon and it is spectacular, and I think it's worth saving.
Can I say something just real quick? Just on what Peter's saying as far as want to save areas and view sheds. I think in the meantime we're trying to save some. We're like, what, number 44 on the economic scale of out of 58 counties as far as being one of the poorest, lowest paid counties. I mean, 44, and we're 6,000 below average, as far as annual incomes. We need to create places where we can have jobs, sustainable jobs. So the view is beautiful, that's wonderful, but I think being able to feed our families and create a county that we can raise the bar a little bit above poverty level would be nice. So we need to have a place that we can put those kind of jobs and those kind of things, places, and that is not ag ground. I mean, you can't grow anything but grass 2 months out of the year, unless it doesn't rain like this year. We get a month and a half. We're not taking it all out of ag, we're taking a corner out of it, which is right by the city. We have roads everywhere to attach to it. It seems to me like it's a pretty simple process that we just keep going about views and vernal pools. These are all things that have to be addressed by the developer as it goes through. I think we need to be able to give it the opportunity just to do that, to move forward with this thing. I just don't understand why we keep beating up these issues here, and we're okay with 15 down here in a viewshed area on a corner that has no real connections. I just have an issue with that. I just don't understand why we keep going back to the same place. I think these are a lot of things, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the developer, whoever the developer may be, will have to overcome these hurdles.
Yeah. Well, I, kind of sense still a strong division in the room.
And if they can't overcome, it's still ag.
It is still ag. It's not going to change.
And so I think we're at a point where we need to start.
Okay,
second option,
so
yeah.
the second one, I would, and the one thing I think we need to say is the 1,100 acres is 1/6 of the, a little bit more, but 1/6 of the 6,000 acres. So you would have 5,000, almost 5,000 acres that would stay open for cows or whatever. And then in the narrowness is, it looks like it's probably like maybe 3,000 to 4,000 feet from the highway. I mean, it doesn't, this dog leg doesn't go back very far. So the other 5,000 acres is that canyon that you want to keep open. It's definitely going to be open back there unless they can think of something else to do it other than cows. I mean, So yeah, I'm talking about mixed use on the 1,100 acres. But it would be under a master plan, a sustainable plan that the city of Chico would really have to approve.
The other thing that I heard, Georgie, that you talked about was with an interchange, and I don't know whether you want to make that.
Can we make that part of it?
A remark. Yeah.
Can we suggest that
it would definitely
the city of
run
Chico
with that alternative that you would this alternative would work towards the creation of an interchange.
Yeah, that would be the importance of it.
Another person brought up dump compatibility. So I don't know whether we want to include that also as a recommendation for this alternative.
Yeah, I think, they talk about this 2,000-foot buffer, but I like John's idea of not just it being left open, but uses that also the landfill sees as something that it would like to have in its locale.
Okay.
We,
go ahead.
Are we in a position where we should be developing this parcel? I mean, are we the ones that should be saying this is what's going, we need a dog leg here and we need this area here, or are we taking this as?
Well, we're not going to say where the designation should go in that acreage.
We're just going around in circles here. What I think is it's going to be ag or it's not going to be ag.
Yeah, but if it's not ag, we need to define what it's going to be so there can be a vote.
Yeah, but we've got such a diluted definition. We're going to have 10 or 12 different things we're going to vote on. It's either we're going to have development or not. I mean, that's where we are.
Aren't we just, do we Do we have to be
I don't.
acknowledged first?
Sorry.
I mean, 5,000 acres are ag or open, right? Isn't that what number 2 is?
I haven't put a number on that. Is that what you want?
Well,
Yeah, well, if it's
Put
a
the opposite of
6,000.
1,100 up there. so we can
whatever
see it.
is left after 1,100 is developed.
Well, maybe we need to say where we want that 1,100, though, because, I mean, they're right.
Well,
we don't want it just anywhere.
Yeah, well, saying something about the landfill compatibility does, in a sense, say where you want that development to go.
Okay.
So is this close? 1,100 acres, business park, industrial,
Mixed use.
I think it's a good
mixed-use,
compromise.
specific plan. It's sort of the mom and apple pie. All interchange, landfill compatibility, 5,000 acres of ag, open space.
Landfill buffer?
Landfill buffer?
Yes. And I don't know if there's room for a third alternative. We did on the last time have 5 support agriculture with both industrial and residential uses.
Well, this has mixed use.
That's a mixed use option, so we could throw that one out if you want to just vote on 2.
Yep.
I hear consensus on that, okay? So let's take a vote. And Tim, can you count the votes?
I can.
Okay. And we want hands held high for ag only, alternative 1, please.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
And alternative 2, hands held high, please. Okay, so we have 8 votes for alternative 1 and 14 votes for alternative 2. Next study area, which is study area number 10. And that is Skyway Neal Road. And Pete will bring that up. Yeah, bear with us here. There's a lot of slides to go through. Skyway Neal Road, the report on this from May 1st, all prefer alternative 1 with the exception of the Tuscan Ridge Golf Course development area, rural residential agriculture resource conservation. 9 prefer no golf course development for alternative 1. 6 support allowing approximately 165 homes in the golf course development. 6 support allowing approximately 50 homes in the golf course development. All agree that any visual impacts and traffic along the Skyway will need to be addressed. And note, a total of 12 CAC members supported allowing at least 50 units of new housing at the golf course at the May 1st meeting. The CAC decided to reconsider this study area. This discussion will occur at the May 8th CAC meeting. So that's where we're at right now. And I am not sure who was the original person who asked to reopen this study area, but feel free to speak up if you are here.
Actually, I was. And
yes,
the reason I did it is my belief that if the higher density residential doesn't get involved with this golf course, it's going to die. I think there's lots of community support for the same thing, and that's why I wanted us to relook at this. This golf course is going to die without this. And I think it's a great golf course, and I think it's an amenity to lots of groups within this community, the area. It's great. And I don't play golf.
So I think it's cool that we could golf our way all the way from Paradise down to Highway 99. However, I realize this got reopened, but the vote was pretty clear the first time out that the majority of folks really did favor limited development on the golf course, which was a maximum of 50 homes. There were also some folks who didn't think even that was a good idea, but the compromise of 50 homes is probably where I think we need to be tonight. The reason I began the meeting by asking Dan about CEQA and the environmental impact report, without going into any of the long details of California law, the reality is no general plan can make things worse. Now,
That's not what staff says.
it can't make things worse in terms of traffic. It can't make things worse in terms of the environmental impacts, air quality, etc. we have approved an enormous number of potential homes in various study areas. We have proposed, as Pia has noted, areas, many areas for potential industrial growth, ag industrial growth. So as we keep spreading out opportunities, we do run the risk of making things worse. And as we identify more and more areas for potential development, we are also imposing a cost on the county, because the more areas that we identify, the greater will be the cost of the environmental impact study. So I really believe that we need to stick to the alternative that was voted on, which is no more than 50 houses. Not all golf courses succeed. In fact, the evidence is very many of them try and fail, but that is not our problem to solve.
Okay, so your suggestion is an alternative that allows 50 homes, and that's it. And that was one of the alternatives last time.
Dan?
Yes. Doug?
Like I said last time we addressed this, I still don't understand why a golf course that is outside of the city limits, outside of the sphere of influence, we have to support this golf course. Why do we leapfrog up Skyway just because of the golf course's survival? I agree that it might succeed and might not. It's not our responsibility to make it that way. So I go for alternative number one, no growth at all.
Okay. Hey, Bruce, sorry.
I think we should, because of the division we had on that, your statement that a total of 12 members supported allowing at least 50 units, there we go kind of developing property again. The golf course has indicated, at least from what I understand, that their 165 units is kind of their so-called proposal. Do we know they can make it with 50? If you take the 50 off the table, 5 of the 6 that voted for the 50 would have voted for no development at the golf course. So we do one of two things. We leave the golf course development, the 165 that they propose, because we can't assume 50 is going to make the golf course float, and we shouldn't have to worry about that anyway. Or we send this forward to the Planning Commission with no definitive alternative.
Well, maybe a way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, one with no development or no recommendation, and the other
Well, no, one or the other. Either we send it forward with no definitive alternative, or we narrow the alternatives down to no development at the golf course, or the proposal that the golf course has put forward.
Which is 165
and not
units.
trying to redo their proposal down to 50. It's either one or the other.
It seems like that's where we were before. I remember Toby saying, let's vote on either yay or nay on development.
And David threw in the 50 number, and
didn't
I
agree with
thought
that
that
either.
was really stupid.
Okay. Are we interested in voting right now?
But let me ask
Or do
this.
we want to discuss this some more?
Well, no, I just had a question. So, I mean,
Okay.
what he's saying is that, if you do 50 houses and they're big houses, if you do 165, then they're little houses or whatever. I mean, maybe we really aren't doing that. Maybe we're really letting the Planning Commission, your suggestion that we don't make a proposal and let the Planning Commission deal with the homes or no homes inside the golf course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inside the golf course. Because it's not on the outside of the golf course, it's inside the golf course, right?
That's correct. The development would be interior to the golf course.
Then narrow it down to no growth at the golf course or the 165 that they've put forward.
Okay, is there support to take a vote on that?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right. Alternative 1, show of hands, please. Alternative 1 is zero dwelling units. And alternative 3, 165 dwelling units.
Ten, that's right.
10.
Someone not vote? Well, then I think it goes forward that way then, doesn't it?
It does. It goes
Great.
forward this way.
Great.
All right, next study area. We are up to study area number 17.
Now we're really split.
Perfect.
Which is Durham.
We're way ahead of schedule here, 6:16.
And
No.
moving right along. In study area 17, the report is all support alternative 1. Existing general plan consistent with the Durham, Dayton, Nelson plan. That's an area plan approved by the county already. This would allow 500 new homes, medium and medium-high density residential, retail, industrial, and public designations near the center of Durham, very low-density residential around the edge of town, agriculture in the remainder of the study area. So this was a full majority support of the CAC. All votes for this alternative. And may I ask who asked to have this study area pulled? Alan?
That would be me.
Okay.
And let's see, I think the main thing came back was it was 500 homes rather than 50. And I think all the argument in the way of the discussion on page 323 of the workbook is oriented towards the 50 as far as the scoring and that sort of thing.
The alternatives evaluation
Yes.
report.
So consequently, we're basing our decision upon I don't know how many pages of verbiage here that is incorrect.
Okay.
And I'm a little disappointed that we don't have a new presentation that would be in line with the 500 new homes instead.
For comparison purposes.
Because we really don't have a basis to make a good objective
Right. Those 500 homes are what could happen right now under the existing Durham, Dayton, Nelson plan.
Right.
So it would require developers to apply for subdivision maps and other entitlements before they got to build those homes in most cases, and that would require additional CEQA review. But you're right, the alternatives evaluation report base their figures and their calculations on the 50. I don't have anything else to add on that.
The other thing is that we're dealing here with prime ag land and also a flood corridor. So I think those two things, are important considerations. So I don't know a great deal about what we're talking, where we're putting the 500 new homes, whether we're going to put them in flood corridor or how much the ag prime land is going to be involved and that sort of thing. And could you elaborate a little bit on that? Do you know anything?
Well, so Alan, I think what I hear you're saying is that perhaps you feel that the Durham, Dayton, Nelson plan, as is, designates too much development. Because this 500 figure stems from what's permitted on the ground right now by the Durham, Dayton, Nelson area plan. And so what you're saying is that there's too many residential units under the existing Durham, Dayton, Nelson plan. You'd like to see that backed off?
My question would be, is that the existing general plan?
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of the existing general plan.
I don't know a great deal about how they derived the 500 home decision with the existing general plan. So I don't know what input went into that.
Well, it was a lot of input went into the Durham, Dayton, Nelson plan. There was a lot of review and there was an EIR completed. I can't answer your question as to specifically where all those 500 units are going to go right now.
I think just one more point, quick. I think what would concern me, when you cross the railroad track going towards, I guess going towards the east, at that point you get into the flood zone and also you get into the prime ag area. In spades, especially if you're going into with the residences or the industrial for that matter.
Right. Thank you. Yes, John.
I think that that 500 number doesn't come forward in the same way that other numbers have come forward. I think what's going on is if you measure up the acreage and divide it by the number of units allowed per acre, you could 500 might be the kind of the upset number, the most you could possibly do if everybody had a well that worked, if everybody accepted the work,
Yeah.
And I think that but if we back off of that for a minute and look at what went into the Durham, Dayton, Nelson plan, it's not like, 5 people showed up in the meeting and said, hey, we want this number or that number. I mean, that was a lot of meetings, and people in Durham went through a lot to come up with it. And they're looking at the ag issues and the flooding issues and the water, the condition of wells in that area and the like. And they came to this, and it got an EIR, and, it really is that community's kind of plan for what's going on. It happens to turn into theoretically 500 units, which,
Yeah.
I don't know if that would happen once you go through all the effort of the subdivision.
Let me just elaborate on that a little, John, because there is something called an urban reserve policy statement in the Durham-Dayton plan itself, which functions to require, if a major development came in, to require a very large investment in infrastructure for water, for sewer, for parkland. So there's a safety measure built into the Durham-Dayton Nelson plan that requires developers to meet these requirements, to build in capital improvements before that kind of residential density where we get at the 500 would happen. So that's an aspect of the plan that's real, and it is...
How recent is the plan?
What's that?
When was it written?
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
I have a question. So if something's zoned like A5, so it's a 5-acre parcel, one property, I mean, we're not changing, so now they can build a whole bunch of houses on a 5-acre parcel. I mean, it's still, the zoning still mandates what can go there. If it's a 10-acre parcel, A10, we're not changing the zoning.
Right. We don't, well,
so where could they put these 500 homes?
Well, what we're looking at is general plan designations. Okay, so the zoning can sometimes reflect a 5-acre density, but the general plan could allow a greater density with additional improvements. The developer would have to come in with a zone change and meet those conditional requirements for additional infrastructure, et cetera, before they could get that. So that in some cases, the general plan would allow density that's greater than the designated zoning.
Which would make it an infill if we held the existing general plan. It's not a lot of new land divisions. It's all infilling existing parcels with some of the medium and high densities would probably be why those numbers jumped up.
As designated by the current general plan, right?
But it sounds like it's more driven by the reality of either being able to build or not being able to build the higher level of infrastructure.
Right. Right. Currently, Durham is not served with a sewer for higher density development. There's water service in certain areas. There is a lack of developed infrastructure for roads, as well as parks. So those are things that would have to be solved for further development.
Well, I think with that safeguard in place, I wouldn't want to be the one to actually have to run into anybody at the Durham market after we said that we voted to dump the Durham-Dayton Nelson plan. I think that we ought to go with what the folks in the area came forward with this kind of enhanced understanding of, well, it's 500, but maybe not so much.
Do we have any change in philosophy here on what we need to vote on, aside from what we voted on before?
Well, I think the reason we reopened this is similar to Area 5, because we were told 400 homes in Area 5, and it ended up being 3,800, and this was 50, and it went to 400.
Okay,
so
that's worth deliberation.
It was unanimous to go with the Durham-Nelson plan, the D2N plan, with the understanding that it was 50. So now it's 400, or 500, 500. So I think that's the issue here.
But they can only do the 500 if they have the infrastructure. And
The majority of that, yes.
Vote?
Well, okay. Yeah.
There is no.
supported or not supported, I guess.
There was just a clarification, is that all we did?
Yeah, so I mean, we could reaffirm the 3 options we had prior, if that's what we want to do. Well, okay, all right, we can do that.
Yes.
Everybody who is in favor of the Durham-Dayton-Nelson plan, which is alternative 1, raise your hand.
Sold.
Did you count? Okay, moving right along. Study area 18, which is the last study area for the evening. Durham-Dayton Highway 99. Now, there was a little confusion on this study area and its location, and DC&E attempted to make it a little bit more clear on this exhibit. There's a typo on here. It's not the Brook Family Farm access. It's the Book Family Farm, as everybody knows. And this really fronts on Durham-Dayton Highway and part of the, I think it's the southbound on-ramp for 99 at this location. And so a lot of people were getting confused about the road network in this location. It's right proximate to the interchange between 99 and Durham-Dayton Highway, and it fronts along there. So the last time, 14 supported alternative 1, all agriculture. 4 supported alternative 3, all industrial and retail. 1 supported a modified alternative 3, with the eastern corner of the study area in industrial and retail, remainder in agriculture. Let's see, note, at the 5-1 meeting, the CAC decided to consider this study area, so that's where we're at right now. Option 2 was, well, the way they have it itemized there, option 2 is alternative 3. 4 supported alternative 3, all industrial and retail. 1 supported a modified alternative 3.
How many
Did you get all
acres
that?
is this? How many acres is it?
100 something. Dan, I was the one that asked this to be brought back.
Okay.
Two reasons. One was to clarify that the white stripe running through the green area of the triangular shape is in fact the relocation of Heavy Horse Lane serving Brook Family Farm. So we have an island now created that if you're traveling north, the second reason that I brought it up, one was to clarify that that is the access, and I was able to get a Caltrans map, and so now I'm comfortable that that map is accurate. The second reason I wanted to bring it up was because this side of the freeway does not have the same view characteristics that are important to many people. And where that island is actually behind the on-ramp, the southbound on-ramp, which is raised. And as you're traveling north, you don't see that island from the highway going either direction. And so to take advantage of this interchange at the crossroads of the center of Butte County between Durham and Butte Valley, between Yuba City and Chico, to have some ability to add some nicer visual, highway-oriented services, I think we need some somewhere at that intersection. And this location provides the least impact visually and is on the side of the freeway where there still is not, we're not in the good soil. The only farming occurring to the south is rice land, to the west is fallow, and then into rice land.
Pumpkins.
What's that?
Pumpkins.
The thing about splitting this into agriculture and retail, if we just did the retail as the island or industrial/retail as the island, then the 300-foot setback would essentially wipe out its use. So if we're interested in having some additional highway services at this location, and that is a palatable spot for it because of visual, because of the existing infrastructure that's there, then we're going to have to grant them 300 additional feet west of that Brook access road, which will get eaten up by the ag setback in order to have anything happen on the island. So in the reflection since last week in getting this map and drawing my triangles of where the setbacks are going to be, it's going to eat up a substantial portion of that property. I'm feeling like we need to A, decide if we want to balance some additional services at that intersection, and B, we have to come up with a way to do it so that we don't just cancel ourselves out with ag setbacks.
I'm embarrassed not to know it, but does the 300-foot setback apply to anything but residential?
It would apply to commercial uses as well, but it's a different type of setback. It's a different policy and program under the ag element.
There is mitigations like berming and trees for
There is
that.
mitigation for commercial purposes, but not as much. Yeah, it's not a 300-foot setback as it would be for residential.
All right, so my proposal for reconsideration would be to take the island portion, allow that to be retail and industrial, and mirror that width, whatever that width is, to the other side of that access, so that if there is a setback issue, it doesn't jeopardize the ability to do some retail or industrial or traffic-related type things
So
on that island.
Essentially, Michael, you're saying that there would be a strip of retail on both sides of this frontage road that heads down
Or industrial.
to, or industrial, down to Book Family Farm.
Right. That way, if there's issues with the setback, then the rest of it being, it's actually not very great ag land, but it's okay not to have 100 acres there.
Do you have any idea how wide that is from the white to the, how deep that is, I guess?
It's about 300 feet.
Oh, good, okay.
So if we mirrored that and had another 300 feet and there was a setback issue, then the original island would still be usable. If there is a mitigation available to allow something, then the costs of that road improvement could be bore on both sides of the road. And I think that that's an acceptable place to put it because it's not visually impacting the traveler on Highway 99.
So why are we discussing this? We were pretty clear when we just voted on the golf course. We were 10-10. But one of the positions people took was we really shouldn't be getting down to a 300-foot setback. We're now into very specific details of what ought to be done with this particular property. So I don't see the consistency in our decision, and I really don't see why we're rejecting the recommendations and the evaluations of the consultant. Alternative 1 was the only alternative that received scores that were not at the lower range. Once you move down to development,
Got me.
I'm really sorry if I bothered somebody. So there are 18 listed species. Now, whatever you think of that, the reality is, under commercial industrial development for this little parcel, you're into a D score, and it also says there isn't any water. So why would we vote for alternative number 3? Is there some specific, somebody here at the table have knowledge about some development proposal that the rest of us don't have knowledge of?
The only thing that I would say is that we've noticed, since we do warehousing, leasing and stuff, we've noticed in the last year a huge increase in companies that do the transport, the truck delivery, long-haul trucking and stuff like that, doing more short-haul trucking. They're kind of making smaller routes, like we do with getting our gas to the grocery store and home and stuff. So they're doing shorter routes, and they're looking for places where they can have truck warehousing that's close to the highway, doesn't go through a residential neighborhood. And we've had a lot of calls for those. We just don't have any, really areas that are really handy, on Highway 99 to put them. That's the only thing I know. I don't know of anybody who's developing this, but, I know there's a need for it.
Okay, I think that, Scott, we shouldn't be in the business of trying to figure out where things should go into that level of detail, but we can consider a certain amount of commercial. You could specify the number of acres, and so if you knew about, the number of acres of commercial that you would need for the type of development that you're envisioning, then we could specify that. That's fair game.
I don't have anything specific. I just look at this area and I see that this is the center of two major crossroads, and that it's, without any planning, has developed in a transportation-oriented model. And I think that's appropriate for this area. And we've said no to the south side. We've said industrial only on the north side. And we have these view concerns that if we push all that stuff together and look at what this offers, this seems to me like the side that we should be considering if we're going to have any facilities for that intersection. This is where they should be.
Okay, I think we
That's
have our
it.
three alternatives. I don't know, does anybody disagree with that? The three alternatives that Tim's got written up there on the board?
Two out of there, take
All-
two out of there.
Take all, the number 2 out? So we'll vote on 1 and 3. So 3 is retail and industrial on a portion of this property. Yeah, near the highway. We could estimate an acreage. I don't know if you want to do that.
Well, you
could
could
put an
describe
acreage
that acreage as the island plus a similar amount opposite the island, whatever the dimensions of that island
Okay.
are.
Corridor.
All right. Both sides of the road, both sides of the new road. And with the caveat that we will impose the ag buffer, of course, in this area. Okay? Okay, so all in favor of number 1, all ag, please raise your hands. Seven. Okay, and number 3, which would permit some industrial and retail on the northern portion of the area on both sides of the new road with an ag buffer. Hands held high. And that wraps up the study areas. Thank you very much.
Surprise.
So we are going to take a short break till, what do you want to say, Tim? About 15 minutes? 10 minutes. 10-minute break till 10.